Hello and welcome to the channel Gav Axeman Spins. Today's video is a dive into the SUEDE back catalogue and ranking the albums, and they span the years 1993 to 2022. I think was the last album that came out. So great band. I saw them back in the day, as they say. So I saw them on the tour supporting the release of the debut album. So it's my little ticket there. From 1993, £7. That was when you could see bands at a reasonable price. Birmingham Hummingbird got rescheduled, which is why there's a big stamp on there. It's supposed to be in April 93 and it got rescheduled to May. And the last time I saw them was 30 years later at the Birmingham Symphony Hall in 2023, 21st of March, and a whole 35 quid for the tickets then. So actually they kept the prices for modern concerts. 35 quid's really good. Symphony Hall's lovely as well. So and guess what, they were as good in 2023 as they were in 1993, and you don't get to say that very often. So great band. First singles came out in 1992. I have to tip and nod here, I'm only ranking the studio albums, but SUEDE, a bit like the Manic Street Preachers, were also the kings of the CD single. They released some wonderful B-sides in the kind of glory years that carried on really all the way through their career, when CD singles were and extra tracks were a thing. You don't really get them now, but certainly all the way through to, I think, Bloodsports, there's some quality stuff that isn't on the albums that's worth tracking down. So the album that's just in the behind my thumb there is called Sci-Fi Lullabies. That's a pretty essential purchase. So if you're buying vinyl, you don't always get the extra tracks. The CDs are pretty good now, particularly the reissues. But if you want one great B-sides album from the 90s, a lot of people would tip the nod to Oasis and the Master Plan. No guys, SUEDE's Sci-Fi Lullabies, that covers the first three albums and it is phenomenal, particularly the Bernard Butler years. So 1992, the first singles, The Drowners and Metal Mickey. The B-sides are phenomenal. They were doing, there was a lot of radio attention, so I was recording concerts off there. So by the time the first album came in, I'd pretty much heard all the tracks off it. So big fan. Morrissey covered them live around this time as well, so he put My Insatiable One into his live sets on the Euro Arsenal tour. I've got a CD with one of that. Just a pretty decent version, actually. And for me, what I loved about them, they took that kind of indie aesthetic of the Smiths and all of those indie bands, the House of Love and stuff like that, but they absolutely married it to the prime Bowie kind of Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane kind of era, the Mick Ronson stuff, and they had one of the great guitarists of his generation, who only lasted 2 albums, but crikey, he left an indelible kind of stamp on the music scene. I followed the solo careers of Bernard Butler and Brett Anderson. SUEDE kind of have had 2 incarnations. They kind of chugged along to the early 2000s, split up, came back with some concerts in 2010, and have not looked back since, really. So there are only 9 albums. It covers a 30-odd year kind of journey. Let's begin. So what would be at the bottom? So when I do ranking videos, it's my opinion, I always have to say that, but I kind of have to tip the nod to the flow of an album. Is it a good, consistent listen? And sometimes you can have albums that have got less great songs, but the better albums. So the reason this one's at the bottom, I think most SUEDE fans would probably put it there, is it's a bit of a mess of an album. Several producers, long protracted sessions to get it out. There's some decent songs on here, but they're just not very well put together. So I'm afraid A New Morning, yes, that is a picture of a CD on the album cover. I never particularly thought the cover was much cop either. It was an attempt to do something different that didn't quite work. The lead-off single, Positivity, ironically, I can't say much positive about that. All in all, this is not a great album. There's a couple of good tracks. Lost in TV is a really nice song, and I know live they play Obsessions still now, but it's just not a great album. It's not a great listen, and it's a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. I think what Brett Anderson was trying to do, he was more successful in his solo career. more of that and another one, but he released 4 solo albums in between the kind of 2 SUEDE eras, and he got better at doing this kind of quieter pastoral stuff. But yeah, it's not a great album, which is why it would be number 9 of 9 from 2002. It's okay. No, it's not actually, no. From my 8th most favourite one then would be the one that preceded it, and I think part of the problems that this one faced were born as a result of the failings of this one. Now, if you are a SUEDE fan, there's a great documentary that they released a couple of years ago called, I think it's called, what's it called again? Oh, I've forgotten what it's called. The Insatiable, was it Insatiable Ones? Can't remember. Anyhow, there is like a couple of hour documentary that was on Sky in the UK, and they detailed where things started to go wrong, and it really starts with the lead up to this album. I think we know substances were involved, and this album kind of reflects that. The singles aren't too bad. She's in Fashion rips off Sound and Vision. I really like Everything Will Flow. I think that's one of the best things they've done. Electricity's okay, but it's not a great album. It does have a really weak track in Elephant Man, which lets it down. The title track, Head Music's not very good either. Can't get enough. They play that live still. That's got a bit of oomph to it, but it's just a bit of a messy album. The other one I do like that I have to shout out is Hi-Fi. That's a good one. And there's one called Down. But all in all, it's not a great album. However, if you can pick this version up, I think this was a Record Store Day 3 album version. The B-sides, there's some decent stuff in there, actually. There's a good one called Crackhead. That probably tells you all to need to know what's going on there. Brett's book that details this year, he's done a couple of 2-part autobiography, one that goes up to the release of the debut album, then one thereafter. He kind of is fairly unflinching in his own self-criticism of what he was doing at this time, and he basically wanted to be in a guitar band but wouldn't let the guitarist actually play anything, and he tried to kind of make like an electronic-y kind of Princey Sign of the Times era album, and failed. The second track, Savoir Faire, kind of tells you everything you need to know that's what's wrong with this album. The lyrics are pretty shoddy on it. He wasn't on his A game, which is why that would be my number 8. Right, so from here on in, we get some upward trends. So instead of slightly messy albums that don't quite work, get some really solid albums now. So my 7th most favourite SUEDE album, I'm going back to 2012, and it will be Bloodsport. So they came back in 2010, did some concerts, were rapturously received and decided, and I will give them the due, they weren't going to sit on the laurels and just play the back catalogue forever. They were going to do new music, and this is a really solid album. So it's called Bloodsports. Track listing on the back there. So this is the Dinked edition that came out. It got reissued for its 10th anniversary. SUEDE do not miss an opportunity to reissue their albums. I will give them the due. They've kept their catalogue in print and have done a great job in bringing it up from where it was languishing after the New Morning kind of era, and there was a 9-year gap where nothing was happening, and they really have done a good job in milking that catalogue. But this is a really solid album. Barriers, Snowblind, It Starts and Ends With You, great songs. For the Strangers. One I really like is Sometimes I'll Float Away, which has got that slight epicness, but this was a guitar album. It was back to basics. It's slightly lacking in the epicness that SUEDE do really well, but it did what it was meant to do, which was to give them new material to play live and get the band firing again. Great album. That'd be my number 7. And basically what happened is, after that, their confidence came flooding back, and their albums thereafter started to get more and more kind of ambitious. So the follow-up to Bloodsports was Night Thought, so this will be my number 6. This is a really good album again. It's starting now to be more of an album, if you know what I mean by there. So the orchestras come in, the songs flow into each other. Really solid album. Rubbish one to show really, because other than that, it's all dark, isn't it really? But good album. My 6th most favourite. Outsiders, I think, is probably the standout track on here, but it's a really good solid album. So that will be my number 6. And what followed will be my number 5, which is, sorry, show the right way around, the Blue Arrow. And again, each of these albums built on the success of the last, so this is a really starting now to get prime kind of peak Suede area, Echoes coming back, Wastelands, great song, Fly Tipping that closes it is good, Life is Golden. It's a really good album, this one. So, and again, a proper album, a sit down and listen to in kind of one sitting kind of album. So that will be my number 5. Right, top 4. Are you ready then? 1996 coming up. So this is their Britpop album. If there's a, they were kind of one of the first wave of Britpop bands, along with people like the Auteurs, and then of course Blur and Oasis ran away with it. But Suede and Pulp are another one who are a lot more interesting at times, I think. But they came back with this. This was the first album that they released after Bernard Butler had left. 1996. They took a young lad on called Richard Oakes, who applied to audition because he literally could copy Bernard's guitar parts word for word. He toured the album, the second album, which was released after Bernard had left, but Bernard had played on, and what a sterling job he did. And this is a singles album, 5 hit singles from it. It's a pop album. It's probably their most Britpop album. Trash was the comeback single. Brilliant. One of my favourites is the second track, Film Star. That just absolutely goes on. Great drum beat. The prime kind of glam kind of stomp is back on this one. Saw them live on this tour. They opened it with She, which on the album I never thought much of, but live it was fabulous. The other singles, Beautiful Ones, of course, that's possibly their most famous song, I don't know, but when they play it live, it brings the house down because of the old la 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 chorus trick. Saturday Night's one of my favourites. Has a really nice ballady kind of thing, and when they play that live again, it's a wonderful song. Very quite romantic song actually, that is. Lazy, yeah, which I think described what kind of lifestyle that Brett Anderson was leading at this time. But brilliant album. And I have to say, if you can track this version on vinyl down, this is the 20th anniversary version, you then get a second album of all the B-sides, or not all of them, but most of them. Well worth getting, because it contains Europe is Our Playground, one of my all-time favourite Suede songs. But the B-sides of this era, it was the CD single era, you know, there were normally 2 kind of to collect, and they just churned out so many great extra tracks. So but my number 4 coming up. So where do we go next? So so when you do these ranking videos, you tend to find there's you know, the newer stuff's at the bottom, and then you build up to the kind of glory years, but not with Suede actually, because right at the top, and this was almost higher, was Auto Fiction, because this is such a great record. I saw them live on this tour, and as I said at the start, they were as good then as they were when I saw them 30 years before, and you don't get to say that very often. What I love about this album, this could almost be a debut album by a new band. They absolutely go for it. For those that like to look at vinyl, this one was a fan club, you know, like a fan sale one, so you did get a nice little signed thing at the front. But it's a great album. When they did these tracks live, it just they came alive. So they're great now, but in concert they were even better. They actually did a full live kind of a record store day last year, like a live version of this album. She Still Leads Me On, great. 15 again, great chorus there. That Boy on the Stage, you know, very autobiographical even. What Am I Without You, big epic-y ballads. And then I do like it's got some proper shouty ones. So Turn Off Your Brain and Yell. So great album, my number 3 from 2022. And when you're looking at bands that do a 30-year career, it's not often you put their most recent album right at the top. It's that good. So Suede fans who were with them in the glory years, who haven't kind of kept up with them, go out and buy this. But I'm pretty sure the fan base did buy that, did very well. So what would be number 1? So the only answer to that is to look at what's number 2. And there can only be one number 2, and that would be their debut from 1993. By the time this came out, I kind of knew all the tracks. It didn't disappoint. My favourite Suede song potentially is the one that starts this album off in So Young. brilliant song. She's Not Dead, Pantomime Horse. One the band are not so keen on, but I always loved, was Moving. However, the reason this isn't number one is because it's also got Animal Lover on it, which is one of my least favourite Suede tracks. And bearing in mind the strength of the material that they were putting on 12-inch singles and CD singles, I can never quite understand how that one sneaked onto the album. But again, this silvery one is the 2-album version, which has all of those wonderful flip sides. My Insatiable one is without a doubt one of the best things I've ever done. To the Birds is a great song. So those were the 2 songs on the opening opening single. But Painted People, High Rising, Where the Pigs Don't Fly, it's just great. So brilliant album, start to finish, really, apart from that one track, which is why it isn't number one. So what is number one? Well, Suede fans will tell you there can only be one. From 1994, the final album with their original guitarist, released after he'd left. They toured with his replacement. How they came back after releasing this and have carried on, I don't know, because when you lose a component as key as Bernard Butler, the fact that I'm making this video all these years later is a testament to that band's resilience. So Dogman Star is my number one, an absolutely brilliant album, classic from start to finish. You can't really sum up 1994. There were some fabulous albums. It's the height of Britpop. Oasis's first album, Blur's Park Life, but you know, nothing really comes close to this one, apart from maybe the Manic Street Preachers' Holy Bible, which is another big, dark, epic album, born a little bit of similar things of what was soon to be tragedy. But this is fab. It's mad. It's a proper album. It combines, it does all the things I like from bands. You've got an ambition that you know, they just went for it from get-go. What I like about this album, it gets more and more ambitious as it goes on. So the closing songs are like the highlights of the album. So on vinyl, the last side contains The Asphalt World and Still Life, kind of career highlights for most bands. But before that, you get things like Black or Blue with the Two of Us, which are kind of epic-y, ballady stuff. You get a sleazy rocker in This Hollywood Life. So the closing half of this album is fab. And it starts brilliant as well. So it starts with a droney song called Introducing the Band. The first single was We Are the Pigs, that wrong-footed everyone at the height of, you know, part life and cigarettes and alcohol. Suede came out with a song about, you know, riots on the streets and watching people burn. It was out of time. It fitted in with the year before. It didn't really fit in with the cheeky chappy Britty poppy stuff, and it kind of, part of the reason I love them even more then, because they just moved away from that kind of era. A lot of people's favourite Suede song is The Wild Ones. I think Brett Anderson is particularly proud of that one. Great song. There's a weirdy one called Daddy's Speeding as well, which I like, which is about James Dean and his accident. But great album. I can't really say much more than this. This is the new version with some sleeve notes and things. Get a nice booklet in there with some very nice artwork. But number one from 1994, Dogman Star. Not just the best Suede album in my opinion, possibly the best album of 1994, possibly the best album of the 1990s, and possibly one of the greatest albums of all time. That's how good it is. So if you haven't heard this, go out and buy it. If you like epic, sleazy, glammy rock, this is the album for you, with a lovely orchestral flourish as well. Number one. Now, it wouldn't be fair to talk about Suede without mentioning their constant reissues and repackaging. Give them the due. I've already mentioned Sci-Fi Lullabies over there, which is their B-sides album. They are in a kind of a little campaign there of releasing things for their 30th anniversaries and their 10th anniversaries as these kind of 7-inch CD sets. So these are well worth getting. So I'll just go through them very briefly. So the first album's been done for its 30th anniversary. You get all of the B-sides, and that's really what you want. But very nicely done, gatefoldy thing, recreates the vinyl kind of experience. Yeah, so slightly better than a CD. CD's just slot in there. Well worth getting. They also did the second album, which was my number one, so slightly posher version. So this was a little bit more expensive when it came out. So it came out just before Christmas last year. This is a 3-disc version. So reissue of the album, all of the singles and B-sides around that time, including a non-album single, Stay Together, which is brilliant. It's got the long version and the short version on here, and then a third CD of kind of outtakes and different versions, including the unedited versions of the Wild Ones and the Asphalt World, which are well worth hearing, and the NME flexi-disc kind of material that was issued to promote the album. And what I liked about this, it folds out like that, so there you go. So it's all housed in there with some nice sleeve notes, and you push it back in, and nicely done. So that's what you get on that one. And to finish, for its 10th anniversary, they did the comeback album, Blood Sports, in the same kind of style. There you go. And that was worth having because you got 8 non-album tracks which were released on 7-inch. They didn't come out on CD at the time, so that was the way to get them, so they all get housed together. And that's probably the last album that had the B-side experience, and they are a great B-side band. One of my favourites. There are not many bands that I could see 30 years apart and were as good both times. £7 in 1993, 35 quid in 2023. I wonder what they'd be in 2025, because gig tickets are going up and up and up, aren't they? Great band. Hope you enjoyed that. Suede, go out and find them. Brett's done some solo stuff. Bernard Butler's done solo stuff. That's worth checking out as well. Yeah, just a brilliant band. I'm trying to get my thing working that turns this video off, which for those who watch this channel regularly knows is a bit of trial and error. But if it doesn't work, I'll have to press the button. But thanks for watching. If you're liking and subscribing, please leave comments. Tell me what your favourite Suede albums are and your favourite songs. If you're not doing any of that and have enjoyed this video, please come along and join me on future videos. Hit the old buttons and all that type of stuff. Still a new channel, still in the first year, so all support is most welcome. Thanks for watching. Gav Axman Spins signing off.